Hello and welcome to The Life You're Made For. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Pinney. Often our world feels reactive, confusing, and chaotic. On this show, we're going to slow down together. Take a breath, listen, and learn. We'll be joined in conversations with influential thinkers who will help us make new connections, understand our unique potential, check the beliefs we hold, and learn how to overcome unexpected challenges. I know that each and every one of us holds our own inner clarity, confidence, and courage, what I call 3C living and leading. So let's go after it together. I'm cheering you on. I am looking so forward to this new podcast series on our beliefs. Some of the questions that we will be exploring together is, why are your beliefs important to you, and how does it influence the way you live your life? I'm bringing on some amazing guests to talk about why they believe what they believe and really how their beliefs evolved and emerged, how their beliefs may be connected to their faith and their world and how they see their world and how they see people. Maybe there was a time that they outgrew some of their beliefs and they had to bring in some new ones. This conversation is going to be exciting because here's what I believe to be fundamentally true. What we believe becomes our reality. If we believe that we are alone in life and life is only up to us, we will live a very lonely solitude life. If we believe that we have the opportunity to love and be loved, we will find connections and relationships in our life to love and be loved. Haven't we all experienced this? Recognizing when our beliefs were influencing the way we live our life. If we believe, another one that I'm realizing too is, we believe that people inherently are bad and evil, we are going to look for the bad and the evil, and we're going to treat people differently. However, if we believe that there's goodness and life and light inside each human being in this world, what do you think we're going to look for? In the work that I do, in my coaching, I fundamentally believe that people are good at the very core of who they are. They just got a little beat up by life. All the twists and the turns of life just started overwhelming them and creating these beliefs that became maybe one of cynicism, maybe hatred, maybe unforgiveness, vitriol, bitterness, protection. You know, as I talk about grace space, all of these areas, responding versus reacting, questioning versus accusing. When we react, when we accuse, when we choose control over freedom, fear over trust, destructive communication versus constructive communication, when we're choosing the negative side of these are based on our core beliefs. And what I want to call people out to in these conversations is this opportunity to really access these good beliefs inside of us. And if we don't have them, which I don't have some that have hurt me, and I'm going to talk about it in this conversation, how do we replace them? So this is going to be an exciting series that I'm looking forward to. And I've hand chosen these people that I have watched for not just weeks or months, but honestly, years and years. I've watched them live out their beliefs, and I've watched their beliefs evolve, and I've watched them shift in their thinking. And I want to start with me and my personal journey. To open this conversation up, I want to talk a little bit about why I believe what I believe. And I didn't always believe that humans were good. In fact, I grew up in a very religious society and community that taught that humans are inherently sinful and bad. Well, that's a belief I've outgrown. I no longer believe that. I believe that individuals and humans hold so much goodness and love and light inside them. And how I go after that and access that, and how I offer that goodness and love and light for myself and offer it to other people, that's where I want to meet people. I want to meet them in that space that says, okay, we've gotten beat up a little bit by life here, but how do we meet here in this sacred space and offer grace to one another? How do we respond versus react? How do I offer you trust versus fear? How do I offer you freedom versus control? How do I offer you constructive language versus destructive language? How do I offer you a questioning versus accusing? How do I stay curious in this space about where your goodness is? And how do I peel back the layers? And some of us have more layers than others of the hardness, the hard shell that we had to form around our good hearts to protect us. Some of the woundedness that life has inflicted upon us, some of the hardships that life is inflicted on us. Nobody goes through life unscathed. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a pain point. Everybody has a deep hidden woundedness. And as I hold that belief about humanity, I also equally can hold the fact that I am here to go after the love and the light inside each human being. I believe it resides there. And so the people that cross my paths, no matter how hard they've become or how defensive they might be, their lack of receptivity, whatever has happened to them, I don't judge them by how they're showing up in this world. I'm staying curious. What happened to them? What happened to you that diminished your natural good heart and your love and your light that resides in every human? And what can I do to be a safe place for you to access that again and go after it? What can I do to support that strength and strengthen that love, that loving connection, that trusting connection? When we focus on this, do you see how the beliefs can completely influence the way we engage with our world? So that's the core of who I am, why I do what I do, and why I believe in humanity. And let me tell you, in the work that I've done, not just in coaching over the last 15 plus years, but in teaching, I, I have seen the worst of humanity. I have heard some of the worst of humanity. But one of the things I've learned is that I can see myself in everybody's shadow side. I would hope that someone would give me the opportunity to call out the light in me, which leads me to my connection to my faith. My faith is what anchors my beliefs. Let me tell you a little bit more of what that means, because faith is so personal. It's actually a pretty private, sacred journey that each of us hold. For me, my faith is connected to an all loving creator. And what I mean by that is sometimes I have lived very disconnected from any sense of love. And so this false belief that I might live with is I have to strive and stress and worry to get high results. That's the high achiever in me. And I'm not going to apologize ever for being a high achiever. And I always tell this to all my high achievers because I work with a lot of them. I'm not going to talk you out of your high achieving. That's how you've been made. That's how you've been created. However, any of us who are high achievers and want high results, we do know that we can be our worst enemy. And it makes me think of the 12 steps, recognize that there's a power beyond yourself. I really live a lot out of those 12 steps of recovery because I think to be human is to be addicted in any way, shape, or form. I just think it's the part of the human experience. So we're always having to watch for whatever might pull us into something that is distracting us from our true sense of self. And I believe our true sense of self holds so much love and light. I also believe that my faith that anchors me, I believe that when you choose God, a loving, what I call God, a loving creator in the universe, and you choose to connect with them and partner with them, they live within you. There's a connection there that you get to hold. And there's a Latin term for it called the imago Dei, which stands for the image of God. There's an image of God that each of us hold. If I really lived like that, this is what I truly believe in my heart of hearts, but if I really lived that out, I'm going to treat each human being as a kind of a sacred individual. And some of the evil ones or the dark ones that I've kind of crossed paths with, my goodness, how they snuffed out that light and love, or how the world has done it for them, or how any kind of hardship, abuse has really taken a toll on their beautiful spirit. And I don't want to get off too far into the theological realm because that's not what I ever want to focus on. I want to focus on building bridges and calling out the power that each human being holds to live out of this goodness and love and light, this imago Dei within them, and then to recognize it in other human beings. That's my faith. And if I were to put it in a super simple sentence, I would say love God, love people. And so how I show up in my world first starts with from within. And so my beliefs have to be centered and grounded. And one of the things I do on a regular basis is I kind of take inventory of my beliefs, because it's amazing how these false beliefs can just creep in. And so one of the false beliefs I recognized that I was kind of battling with, and this was on being more of a high achiever, is I have to strive, stress, and worry to get high results. Lovely. Isn't that a lovely false belief? What kind of mindset, what kind of state is that putting me in? It's putting me in this constant anxious state. Now, I'm going to be honest. I've lived long enough, I'm smart enough and creative enough that I kind of know how to hide it. I know how to act like I'm not as stressed, because I'm not supposed to look stressed, right? But inside, I can feel that pulling on me to push, to strive, to control. And as I replace that false belief with what I believe on a true belief level, which is I get to live out of joy, and my energy gets to come from peace. Now, this doesn't mean I do it all the time, but this means that I'm getting really strong clarity. I'm engaging my confidence and my courage to now ask a question. Heather, are you living out of your false belief of striving and anxiety? Are you living out of your true belief of joy? And is your energy coming from peace? Because I will tell you that you have energy, you hold it within you, and you can motivate and get high results. But I no longer want to get it from stress and striving, or fear of failure, or fear of what other might think, or fear of disappointing, or fear of not being enough. These are some of the fears that can drive some of my false belief and really kind of hijack my energy to move it into stress and striving. What I want my energy to come from is one of joy. I love who I am. I love my connection to the Creator, and I love people. There's so much joy that comes out of that when I'm in my best space. And then there's so much peace. Whether I'm forming a talk or getting ready for a keynote, or whether I'm creating a whole new program. I recently finished a webinar, and man, I had to really challenge myself. This was a nationwide webinar where I was stepping into, and I could feel the nervousness. Whenever you bring in technology, for me, it can be very nerve-wracking for me. So I could feel myself wanting to slip into that striving mode. I got to get this perfect. I can't disappoint. My gosh, they're paying me a lot of money to get this done. This better work. You better not drop the ball, Miss Heather. Do you hear some of the shame messages that start coming out based on a false belief? I had to work harder on just slowing it down and saying, what's my true belief? What am I reaching for? And my true belief that felt very audacious was I get to live out of joy, and my energy gets to come from peace. So you can already see what kind of product or service am I going to offer as a coach. Translate that over as a mother and as a wife and as a friend. Who am I going to be when I'm operating out of joy and peace versus duty or fear, or a striving or stress that you might be getting it wrong? I've spent a lot of my life building my energy, because here's one of the things that can be dangerous. It can work for you. I knew how to kind of buckle down and put the pressure on myself whether it was to get the A in school or whether it was to open the business or whether it was to secure a relationship. But I did a lot of it out of this stress or striving or this fear. As I'm aging and I'm moving in that second half of my life, I'm beginning to really recognize where my energy comes from. And I'm committing to myself and to my God, hey, let's partner on this and move into this energy flow of joy and peace. And when I'm not, can you help kind of wave a flag so I can slow down and just reorient? And I guess I want to say that's the good news. This is why I do the work that I do. And in my first book, The Life You're Made For, I talk a lot about shifting your mindset from false beliefs to true beliefs. It's equally important to be clear on what your false beliefs and what you realize is holding you back. So for me, I have to stress and strive and worry to get high results. That was really, I was just done with that. And I wanted to dare to hope. And this is what I say about true beliefs. It almost feels too good to be true. But in a perfect world, if you could have it, what would you hope? I would hope that I get to have my energy out of joy and peace. And then I kind of check that with my faith system. And I happen to believe in a creator who believes in joy and love and peace. So here's even a scarier question. If I'm moving out of stress and anxiety and fear, who am I partnering with? What energy am I partnering with? What dark force am I partnering with out there? Sometimes I like to joke about the Star Wars. Again, because I don't like to get involved in all the ins and outs of theology. But we all know that there's a dark force and there's a light force out there. Turn on the news, right? You can see it all out there. So I loved telling everyone, like, move toward the light, use the force for you, not against you. Work with Yoda, not Darth Vader. There's a constant force of flow out there. Being more cognizant of what force we are partnering with makes all the difference. So that's why it's equally important to be clear about your false belief as it is about your true belief. One of the other things I realized, one of my belief systems was I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. And I thought, where is this coming from? Going back to the 12 steps, admit that there's a power beyond yourself. Man, I love that. I realized in my highest anxious moments, what I'm dealing with is I'm trying to be my own God. I'm trying to be my own highest power. I'm trying to be the universe. How ridiculous is that? And so my false belief around that is I have to figure out life on my own and it's up to me. I am alone. That's what I start believing. And my anxiety goes through the roof. Now that I'm clear on that, I reach for true belief, which says, wait a minute, I am partnering with the creator of the universe who loves me and wants my best for me. I can, even just saying it now, I can feel my blood pressure go down. I can feel my stomach stop churning. I can feel the peace and the joy replacing the fear. And I think this is where, my faith and my beliefs really intersect. Why? Because my faith is important to me. I've never hid that. At the same hand, I believe faith is so sacred to each person. So I never want to tell people what they should and shouldn't believe around their faith. But I do want to be transparent about how my faith has served me and how my faith anchors my beliefs. My tagline, as you all know, is clarity, confidence, and courage. And so here's the here's the pulling back the veil, so to speak, or behind the scenes of me, so to speak, is some days I have zero clarity, zero confidence, and zero courage. I want to remind everyone the life you made for, that book I wrote, that was me working through how do I increase my clarity? How do I build my confidence? How do I engage my courage? That's how I began to do it. And I began to really realize the power of what I was believing and how much I was using my beliefs to keep me small. And when I began to realize, goodness, I actually have a lot more power over what I believe and how I believe. And this is where anxiety can be a gift. And I used to struggle with it quite a bit. I can still struggle with it, but I call it more low grade anxiety. It's that internal feeling. Sometimes your stomach just starts rumbling. Sometimes your chest just feels tight. Sometimes you find yourself holding your breath, or like for me, my shoulders start getting hunched. I try and pay attention to my body more to see the subtle signs. I may not be having these big, full blown anxiety attacks, but I don't want to have to get there to recognize when my body is, and my heart and my mind and my spirit are holding anxiety. More importantly, to be able to know that I have the power to replace it with joy and peace, and my energy gets to flow from that. Oh my goodness. And then, even more importantly, to realize that I don't have to manifest this all on my own. There's a powerful force out there, which I call God and the creator of the universe, that is actually working for me and coming alongside me. Man, that's when my whole presence begins to shift. How I'm showing up for my clients, how I'm showing up for my work, how I'm showing up for these big adventures and these big risks, how I'm showing up for my adult children, for my marriage of over 31 years, how I show up for the relationships and the work in my life that matters. Man, this is why my beliefs are really important. And so, with the clarity, confidence, and courage, one of the false beliefs I realized I was battling was I won't know where to go and I can't trust myself. This was something I really had to face when I opened my own company. This massive fear of what if I can't trust me and my capabilities, and the fact that maybe I'm hearing this right, or trust that I do have a creator or a God that wants to come alongside me. What if I've got this all wrong? What if I'm completely off base? Well, that's where the faith comes in as such a powerful component to our beliefs. And so for me, and I tell people all the time, you can work through clarity, confidence, courage, and you can work through my 3C living and leading process. And you can work out your faith on your own in a different space. But I will tell you that my faith has influenced my beliefs. And so, as much as I don't ever want to try and make anyone feel like I am pushing them into a faith system, I also don't want to not be honest that my clarity, my confidence, my courage does exponentially grow once I anchor it into my faith. And my faith is, again, very, very simple. There's a loving God that is for me, and I get to partner with him or her. And so my true belief now is I am being led and I am being guided. And one of my favorite metaphors for that, it comes out of a really powerful old ancient poetry book written by King David called Psalms. And it's Psalms 23. And it talks about God being a shepherd, leading and guiding. And throughout that whole metaphoric picture of the partnership with God, there's talk about being fed, being comforted, being protected by enemies, um, having a feast, having still waters, green pastures, rod and thy staff that come from me, all the way to the end of that Psalms. It talks about the eternal perspective you get to have that God is waiting for us after this life. And I think all of that is just a really powerful word picture. And you hear me talk a lot about in the work that I do of moving to the right side of your brain. Remember, when you move into the right side of your brain, this is where you emotionally heal. This is where you begin to shift it from the heart to the head. So, word pictures, songs, poetry, art, anything that activates that right side of the brain will accelerate it. So, I take my true beliefs, like I'm being led and guided, I anchor it in my knowledge and my faith. Like, I can't prove anything to you. That's the essence of faith, right? But my faith is believing in the unseen, which is I believe there's a God who is going to be is serving me like a shepherd, and I'm like a little sheep, where God is leading me and guiding me. And the Psalms goes on to say, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. Makes me lie down in green pastures." Do you love that passage of lie down? For someone who's a total achiever and striver in life, to lie down, I'm like, that would be awesome. Can I really lie down and get results? That would be awesome if I could rest. It's been a lifelong journey of mine to really trust that I can rest. And I talk about that also in my book. If you've had any kind of trauma in your life, resting can be very vulnerable and very hard. And I've got some trauma in my background. And so learning how to rest and learning how to engage the rest and trust that I can rest, been a powerful journey. But I'll tell you what, I couldn't do that without my faith. I couldn't sit there and rest in green pastures unless I know there's a shepherd watching over me. And I think learning to use your faith to secure your beliefs has made all the difference for me. You talk about the clarity, the confidence, and courage. And so, in some of my scariest moments, and I've done some really kind of big things, I'm not someone who loves taking risks. I'm someone who likes getting results, and therefore I see the risks are necessary. So, my faith is something that helps me take the risks. It helps me take that leap. Hence, I guess the phrase leap of faith. But things don't always turn out the way I like them to, or that I'd hope they would. It reminds me of a coffee shop my husband and I invested in. It felt like this total leap of faith. What do you think I'm looking forward to? My leap of faith being rewarded. What does reward look like? Very successful business, lucrative, high profit margins. That's how I'm defining it. You know what the reality is that happened? We lost quite a bit. Profits margins shrunk. We were moving right into the recession. I was very confused. However, I moved back into my faith that says, what is it that I really believe? I believe that there's a God of the universe who's leading me and guiding me. This isn't a fun lesson for me to learn right now. This isn't fun to feel failure. It's not fun to get my definition of success challenged. But boy, was it necessary. So necessary for my growth. And of course, a lot of this is in hindsight. I mean, this was almost 20 years ago. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I'd be running a very successful coffee empire. Because boy, did I have plans for that coffee empire. What I realize is that was the first part of a stepping stone of learning how to run my own business. You know, one of the most important lessons I learned, very basic lesson. I never want to sell food product, I should say. I never want to sell food product. Why? It's got an expiration date. Very simple lesson that helped me cross off my list. Always knew I wanted to run a company. I just didn't want to do that. And it was a real necessary part of the journey to learn how to run a company. I realized I didn't enjoy managing a staff of like 20 people. That's okay. It helped me then create the staff and the company that I did want to run. You see what I'm saying? There's so much lessons to be learned that are leading us into that next level. And I do remember one of the vows I made, because it did feel like a devastating loss, where we ended up selling the coffee business in like a year and a half. And we were both, my husband and I were like, what was that all about? But it was so important for both of us. We both ended up opening our own companies, and we learned a ton off that lesson. It's not fun in the moment, but if you believe in something bigger than yourself that's operating at a different level than what you're capable of, you kind of grit your teeth and say, okay, I'm being led and guided. I'm being led and guided. This isn't the fun part of being led and guided. There's a part in the Psalms where he's being led through the valley of the shadow of death. Yeah, things were dying all around me. My business was dying. The coffee company was dying. The recession was showing death and dying. We were having a hard time meeting rent, doing anything. I was raising two small kids. Boy, the financial pressures of that. You talk about the shadow of death. And one of the promises that my husband and I both made to each other, and we're both people of faith, was we will never let this stop us again from taking risks. However, we're going to learn what we need to learn from this. And I think it was about 8 years later. I'm not saying there's a magic number around that, but it was probably 8 years later that we were ready to take the next intelligent risk. And both of those ended up being wildly successful. He owns his own company. I own mine. And I feel like part of the success that we are reaping now is because of the lessons we learned from a failed coffee shop adventure. All of this goes back into our true beliefs and our false beliefs. I could have created a false belief out of there. I will never take a risk again. And I could feel that pulling at me. I'm like, no, we will take a risk again. It will be an intelligent risk, but we will take a risk again. And we are going to turn toward the fact that we are being led and guided through this. This isn't where we're going to stay stuck. This isn't going to limit us. Was it a painful lesson? Yeah. Nobody likes to go through those. I don't wish that on anybody. To see your dreams and your hopes dashed like that, to see all your vision when you took that risky leap of faith to get in the arena that Brene Brown talks about and get beat up, none of that is ever fun. But it's preparing us for that next adventure, that next battle, that next risk, whatever you want to call it. Which leads me to one of the other things that really is powerful for me in my belief system is choosing one word for the year. And for this year, I chose the word yield. And I have loved sitting this word. And part of why I choose one word is because I need something at the pace that I go. Sometimes I just need one thing to think about over and over. That's why I love the true beliefs. I'm being led and guided is my favorite true belief, no matter what I'm doing. Before I get up and speak, sometimes in front of, hundreds, thousands of people or whatever it is that I'm doing that makes me super nervous. I'm not sure if I've spoken to thousands yet, but hundreds. It's allowed me to say, wait a minute, I'm being led and guided. I get to trust this process. I'm not someone that runs for the stage. I do it because I believe in my work, and I believe in people, and I believe that when the opportunity rises, when to step into it. But I'm not someone who loves keynote speaking. It's challenges a lot of my false beliefs, and I have to kind of battle through a lot of that before I get on stage. But it's been a beautiful gift when I step into that. And as I think about my word for the year, yield, I love this word for this year is because it's got a double connotation. One is, of course, I want to yield to the flow of energy that comes from joy and peace. I want to yield to my higher power. I want to yield to curiosity and understanding every single person's perspective, especially when it counteracts my own. I want to yield to the more flow of love. I want to yield, and I could keep going on and on. But the second connotation for that word yield is it has the verb in it. You get to yield fruit. You get to yield from what you have planted over the year. Isn't that a cool thought? So I accidentally figured that out. It's not something I came into initially. I was like, oh, but as I sat in the word, I realized yield is a form of release, submission. And it's also a form of to yield is to get your return on your investment, your ROI. And I want both. I want to yield to the process and the twists and the turns that my life needs to take. And I want to yield to love and joy and peace and patience, kindness and goodness and faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And I want to yield to a connection with my higher power. I want to yield to all of that so that I can yield a harvest that's full of stuff that I would never be able to even articulate. a harvest of abundance, of more love, joy, peace, patience, all of these things, these fruits of God's spirit that I believe in. This is that light and love that is constantly swirling around us in this world. How do I yield to that power and that energy, building and flowing in me and in the work that I do? So I want to leave you with kind of this idea of how do I practice this day to day? Because you know me, I always have to get practical. And I came up with this little acronym of WAB, WAB, watching, anticipating, and believing. And I have a funny story around this. I was sitting there on a walk with my husband, and I was just getting really into, hey, this is where I'm really growing my faith, and I'm really checking my true beliefs, and I'm shutting out those false beliefs that have kept me stuck for too long. And as we're walking, my head is down, and I'm saying, and I came with this acronym: watching, anticipating, believing. I want to watch for what's out there, because what we watch for, we'll find. I want to anticipate that I get to have more abundance and love and joy, and my energy gets to flow from that. I want to believe that this is really happening. So it's kind of this threefold trifecta process that I know that I have to show up and do my work in it in order to engage the power of love and light and of my higher power of God. And so that's my job to show up for it. But as I was on my walk, looking down and really getting into it, my husband nudged me and interrupted me. He goes, look up, look up. And I looked up, and there was this gorgeous deer, just feet from me, staring at me, watching, anticipating, and believing. And in that day, I think I was looking for, where is the spirit of God? I want to see it in my world more. But I was so into talking about it. Thank God my husband was right there along the walk with me, and he pointed. He's like, look up, look up. And I made a beautiful eye contact. We just sat and stared. It felt like a holy moment of just connecting with this deer. And I think animals are already so fascinating. So it doesn't surprise me that God chose that to speak to me. But I felt the presence of God saying, I'm here. I'm leading you. I'm guiding you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for anticipating. Thank you for believing. And I think that's then where I choose that faith piece to step into it and believe that I am being led and I am being guided. So I guess I just want to leave you with a deep and sacred blessing. May you feel so much clarity on what your false beliefs are, and may you have the courage to reject them. May you have the clarity to replace them with the true beliefs and the faith that even if they feel too good to be true, you get to trust them. May you have a deep connection with your higher power of love, and joy, and peace, and patience. May you feel light and love swirl around you. May your energy come from peace. And may you notice when your energy is getting sabotaged. And may you have the ability to pull it back and hang on to your own power. And may you be surrounded by people that celebrate this in you, that support this in you, that cultivate and foster this with you. And may you step into a higher level of living that flows out of joy and love and peace. Cheering you guys on.